This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini.
We have to play Dr. Jeff's intro music. How you doing, Dr. Jeff?
I'm doing good. How about you, Carl?
Fantastic, fantastic. So just when you think there's enough to talk about and protein is not a top subject, it comes back and emerges into the limelight again, thanks to lots of unscrupulous companies out there, which we're going to get to that as well and revisit. But for newbies out there, let's talk about the importance of protein and what kind of protein intake people should be shooting for.
Yeah, and I think if most people do understand what protein is, but if you're not quite sure, protein is the building blocks for your body. They are converted into amino acids, which are essential for life, muscle building, brain function, you name it, you need protein to survive. There's a lot of good sources for protein. The best, if you are not a vegan or vegetarian, come from your lean meats like chicken, turkey, fish, beef, pork, eggs, and of course, milks and cheese. On the other side, you can get protein from, beans and peas, nuts. So there's a lot of good sources for proteins. You got a favorite, Carl?
Well, I got to say, I stand to be corrected, but I think the gold standard for protein is egg. Am I wrong? There's something called a PDACC score, which is bioavailability after eating, but also from an amino acid profile. Isn't egg kind of the gold standard that all of the proteins are compared to?
It's not necessarily that they're all compared to, but it does have one of the higher protein efficiency ratings of your food intake of protein.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. So, I personally like eggs, believe it or not, both raw and cooked eggs. And I try to get at least a half dozen eggs a day. And there's some days where I get a dozen. And I eat whole eggs. I'm not afraid of the yolks. My cholesterol is fine, and I'm not afraid of cholesterol anyway. So,
yeah, and for me, I like egg whites. I think that's just from my bodybuilding days. But yeah, eggs are kind of my first choice. And then I think again, just for healthy eating, especially if you are concerned about cholesterol or if you do have some weight to lose, your leaner meats like chicken, turkey, fish. And then leaner cuts of beef are always good. Of course, we got to throw in pork. It is the other white meat.
I want to also throw in something else here that's not discussed when we talk about protein. Amino acids are assembled in the body and used for communication between tissue and organ systems. These amino acids are assembled as messengers to communicate between one part of the body and the other. And eliminating access to any particular protein, especially if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you must work hard to get a complete amino acid profile in your diet. Because think about amino acids as words. Imagine trying to communicate without the words the and or, for instance. You can't do it. You're not going to be understood. Syntax plays a very, very important role in communication. And if you limit your protein intake, you may actually be limiting the building blocks for messengers in your body. We know that things like the endoplasmic reticulum, they specifically folds proteins and assembles these amino acids in certain order to communicate to other parts of the body. So we talk about protein being important for building muscle and tissue, but even if you're not interested in that, getting the right amounts of protein and the right sources of protein is critical if you want organ systems and brain function to be able to communicate with the rest of the body appropriately. What do you think of that, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. And, keeping within that structure is the proteins, like you said, need to be complete. And that's the problem when you get off into nuts and vegetables and things. Some of them aren't complete proteins. They are missing some of those amino acids. So if you are a vegan, especially, or, a strict vegetarian, like Carl said, you've got to work hard to make sure that you are getting a complete protein, which means you might have to combine protein sources if you are lacking an amino acid. For instance, soy protein is lacking the amino methionine. So essentially it is useless as a protein without that amino acid. So you've got to find that from some other source in order to make that a complete protein.
Also, the other thing is, if you're going to be a vegetarian, being an ovo-vegetarian or a lacto-ovo-vegetarian or even a pescatarian, and not eliminating things like egg, milk, and or fish, if that fits within the confines of your morality. I think eggs coming from chickens is not exploiting the chickens if you're getting them from a farmer who takes care of his chickens and they lead a normal life. Because some of the longest lived individuals on the planet, like the Hunza, for instance, they are lacto-vegetarians. They consume dairy and they eat a vegetarian diet. They live for a long time. So even if you're against meat, expanding your vegetarianism to include eggs and or dairy alone could really improve your health and longevity.
Absolutely. And part of that kind of goes into then how much protein does somebody need? And, that's kind of a loaded question because it really depends on, who you are, how much you weigh, what your goals are, how active you are. But I think just from a statistic standpoint, if you're a healthy, sedentary adult, you do nothing but sit around, you don't exercise, 0.5 to 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Now, on the other side, if you are an active adult, you're into weight training, exercising, running, biking, you need about 1 gram to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And one interesting point is if you are trying to gain muscle mass, and currently, let's say you weigh 200 pounds, you calculate your protein intake off of the weight that you would like to be at. So you don't calculate it off of where you are, you calculate it off of where you would like to be. The same way if you're trying to lose weight, you don't calculate it off of your current body weight of 300 pounds when you're trying to get down to 200. So you calculate it off of that.
That's interesting. And I've always wondered that because I've wondered when you look at your body, you obviously have lean body mass and you have fat mass. And why use that in your calculation? Even going up, I would say, if you're eating to gain, you probably need to look at the lean mass to predict how much protein you need, right? How do you do that? Do you use fat calipers and try to assess your body fat?
Sure. Fat calipers is good. I think the mirror, is always a good thing. How do you feel? How does your dress, your pants, your belt fit around your waist?
Interesting. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about protein, but also we're going to be talking about something that was in the news recently, and that's protein spiking. It continues to happen, and more companies are falling into the fold of spiking protein. Stay tuned. You're listening to Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini. We'll be right back.
Muscle gains, Freakmaker Build from AAEFX is a scientifically engineered post-workout formula that combines Protein, whey isolate, whey concentrate, milk isolate, casein, and egg, quality protein sources with carbolin, free alkaline, and medium-chain triglycerides. A 2-to-1 carb-to-protein ratio to optimize post-training recovery and repair. Freakmaker Build delivers 58 grams of fast-absorbing carbolin to replenish glycogen stores and 1.5 grams of alkaline pH-buffered creatine monohydrate. Get Freakmaker Build today. Go to superhumanradio.com and click the AAEFX banner ad.
There are a few products that I believe in the way I believe in Can-C eye drops. I've been using Can-C for 6 months now, and the changes in my vision are nothing short of amazing. My near vision has improved, and I can read small print from 8 inches. My overall vision is clearer, and the glare from oncoming headlights doesn't bother me any longer. Just 1 to 2 drops a day, and the results are visible. You can find Can-C eye drops at wisechoicemedicine.net or call 800-861-4936. That's 800-861-4936. wisechoicemedicine.net. Can-C eye drops. The name says it all.
Everyone knows the importance of optimal vitamin D levels for health. Every week, a new study is released showing the linkage to disease from low levels of vitamin D. But throughout evolution, we have never gotten the massive amounts of vitamin D in our diet that we get today. This is why oral vitamin D is associated with toxicity and the risk of calcification of organs. Vitamin D is naturally synthesized in the skin, but dermatologists tell us to stay out of the sun for fear of skin damage. Now, you can take your vitamin D the way nature intended it with Primal D. Primal D delivers a topical dose of vitamin D into the skin where it belongs. Topically applied vitamin D does not carry the risks associated with oral vitamin D. And a single bottle of Primal D should last you a year. For less than 19 cents a day, you could be taking the world's best vitamin D supplement. Go to primal-d.com to learn more. Oh, and you don't have to wait to run out of your current vitamin D to order Primal D. You can just throw it away because it just became obsolete. Primal-d.com. Vitamin D delivery the way nature intended it. Hey, this is Carl. Start your day just like I do with a high-dose lipospheric vitamin C from Live On Labs. You too can benefit from Live On Labs' lipospheric delivery system. No more pills or powders. That's outdated technology. Live On Labs has the world's most efficient vitamin delivery system, period. Learn a lot more today at liveonlabs.com and benefit from their new reduced pricing. That's liveonlabs.com, Livon labs.com.
The benefits of a ketogenic diet are immeasurable. Health, resist disease, mental function, and even performance. But getting into ketosis can take weeks, if even at all. Now you can get into ketosis in 10 minutes. Ketocana is the first ketone powder that has been clinically shown to switch you into a ketogenic state by providing a rush of ketones into the bloodstream. Like to train fasted or want to spare more muscle glycogen during workouts? Take a shot of Ketocana and hit it hard. Go to superhumanradio.com and click the Ketocana banner ad today. Do you have a federal student loan? Did you know that the federal government has allotted millions of dollars to reduce or forgive your student loan debt? Are you getting your share of these federal forgiveness program dollars? If you answer no, then you need to call 866-539-2755 right now. FedAidAdvisors.com will qualify you right over the phone for free. One free phone call, and FedAidAdvisors.com guarantees to reduce your payments, eliminate interest for the first 3 years, and even wipe your loan debt clean for those who qualify. The call is free to find out if you qualify. Call 866-539-2755 right now. That's 866-539-2755. For the best in real world, no nonsense, result producing and effective strength training, muscle building, and physical culture information, read Brooks Kubic's books and courses. Don't delay. Sprint on over to brookskubic.com and choose from more than a dozen of the best books and courses on the market. Brooks Kubic's training advice has been building strength, transforming physiques, and changing lives for more than 25 years. If you prefer ebooks, look for Brooks Kubic's best-selling courses at Amazon's Kindle bookstore. Show your support for Physical Culture Radio by going to brookskubic.com right now.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini. So, Dr. Jeff, we know that we actually talked about the protein spiking scandal not too long ago, but since then, even more companies have been added to the list, have they not?
It is. You know, it's kind of hard to talk about protein when we're going to tell people where to get protein from, and protein powders are probably some people's primary source of protein. To talk about all of these protein spikings, yes, it is just out of control. And continues to grow.
In fact, weren't you just interviewed by Forbes magazine in relationship to this whole protein spiking scandal?
I did. You know, this because there are so many big brands now and big national stores that are selling these. Forbes magazine got a wind of all the suits and found out that, you know, we were one of the companies that are doing it right, doing a good job. So had a good interview. That should come out here in the next week or so. But I think it's going to hit the media. You know, people need to be aware of what brands and what they're using. But it's pretty difficult when you go into the big retail stores and there it is. They're not taking it off the shelves.
Well, and it doesn't even matter if the protein is being made by a co-packer or being made directly from the company itself, because some of these other brands like Body Fortress, right? They're aren't they part of the company that owns Metrics? I want to say it starts with an H.
Yeah, they are a manufacturer. So, the brands that are owned by manufacturers, they all know. Everyone knows what they're doing. It's the fact that the cost has gone up on protein, and when the first guy started it, now all of a sudden he's selling his product so cheap, everybody just followed suit. All you got to do is go online and Google class action protein lawsuits, and you can see the brands. Go to classactionnews.com. I mean, it's crazy, and probably you guys are using some of these brands and wondering why it tastes so good, or you're not really getting your results.
So but what it really comes down to is responsible testing. So there's a couple different ways to test protein, and one way allows companies to kind of fib, if you will, and another way does not. What are the different ways to test protein powders?
Well, the way that conventionally all proteins were tested were using what's called the Kydell method, where you were checking for total nitrogen content. Now, this is where the Chinese got into problems when they were adding melamine to their soy protein, because melamine, which is used in fertilizer, has a high nitrogen content. So when you run these type of tests, all you're doing is measuring nitrogen. You don't even know that you have protein. So that is probably the most common way to determine protein contents. Now, obviously, we've developed more sophisticated methods where we first have to determine that it's 100% protein. So you can do amino acid test to find out, are there elevated amino acids? One of the tricks right now is people are adding an inexpensive amino acid called glycine. It's a fraction of the cost of protein. It's not protein. You can't count it as a protein. All they're doing is using to get their costs down and hoping that if you run a nitrogen test, it's going to come out fine. Near infrared, also, you can determine protein contents. The Department of Ag is also using DNA sequencing, where they're getting in and looking at the source. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually determine if it's real protein or not.
We actually had a sponsor on the show a couple years ago, through last year, that got caught in a scandal before any of this protein spiking stuff went on. In fact, they weren't even spiking their stuff. It tasted so great. Everybody loved it. It was supposed to be grass-fed, cold pasteurized, blah, blah, blah. And it only had 5 grams of protein per scoop and 14 grams of sugar. It was supposed to be 22 grams of protein and 2 or 3 grams of sugar. That was an instance where they weren't even adding any type of nitrogen-based amino acids to cover it up. They were just blatantly selling it as is. And when someone finally tested it outside of the company, they got caught. So the question becomes, if a company lies to you once, should you trust them again? If they say, we got it straightened out, they come up with a reason, we didn't know this was happening, but we got it straightened out, buy it now. I would be reluctant to buy from them ever again.
Absolutely not. Statistics show that the majority of criminals are lifetime criminals. Only a small fraction get converted. The problem is that these companies are being caught. Okay, they're being sued. The class actions are going to cost them, $2 million. But guess what? They made $100 million on their protein. There's no governing body that's saying you have to change. So they continue to do it. There was a company 15 years ago that got caught 3 times for putting maltodextrin in their protein. Got a little hand slap, got a warning by the FDA. They continued, and people continued to buy it because they were supposed to be the best, didn't care, had a good price. So I think, again, if these guys are caught, why would you buy anything from them? If they're going to cheat on protein, you can guarantee that they're cheating on the rest of their products too.
And again, for the larger companies that are manufacturing their own stuff, clearly they know what they're doing because they're buying raw materials from companies like Glanbia, or even Kerry, if they're getting it from Ireland. They're getting protein isolate, they're getting milk protein isolate, whey protein hydrolysate, whatever it is, and then they're blending in the amino acids to dilute it basically, so they can sell less real protein as real protein.
And even the brands, Carl, they know what they're doing because we've had people come to us and ask us to do something along this line where, hey, we want to add, 30% sugar to our product. Okay, not a problem. Until you see the label and it's like, no, you can't do that. So the brands are at fault and they are responsible. And then so are their manufacturers because their manufacturers are responsible for making sure that product meets label claim. So, what I'm asking is why support these cheaters? Putting money into their pockets, why are we buying things that aren't what we're paying for? If it were anything else, if you went and bought a car and it was a lemon, what would you do? You wouldn't keep it. You'd send it back, get your money back.
And you surely wouldn't go to that dealer and buy another one.
Absolutely not. I mean, if Ford Motor Company got caught cheating on their products, I don't know how they, what they could do, but you wouldn't buy a Ford car anymore. Why would we want to buy these products when they've been caught cheating? And this isn't the first time, and this has been going on for years. It's just now coming to the limelight.
Yeah. Okay, so what can we talk about, getting back on a positive track here? What else can we talk about as far as protein goes, protein consumption? Is there anything that we can discuss about enzymes? So as we age, we tend to have a harder time digesting even protein supplements. Is it wise to have those protease enzymes added to your protein powders?
It depends on the type of protein. So like we were talking about, eggs being kind of the gold standard, we got to look at the protein powders now. And, whey protein concentrates, whey protein isolates are at the top of the BV, which is biological value, meaning the better you can absorb a protein, the more that you're going to utilize. So if you have some milk allergies and you're allergic to lactase, remember that, all milk proteins contain some lactase, especially if they're from whey. So, by either taking a lactase enzyme or adding it to it, and as you said, as we get a little bit older, protease is one of the enzymes that help us to digest. But I think most people don't have that problem. But if you do, it's relatively inexpensive. You can either, add that to your regimen or look for a product that may have that in there.
Yeah, very good. Does having those enzymes in the product potentially start to degrade the product on the shelf, or does it require hydrolysis, the addition of water to activate the enzymes?
Yeah, most of them are relatively dormant, so they're pretty stable. And normally we put in a little bit extra to compensate for sitting on the shelf. All enzymes do degrade, but for the most part, for the duration of that shelf life, you should get ample amount to help with the absorption and digestion.
Well, but what I really am getting at is those are designed to break down the protein,
right,
and through the digestive process and aid digestion. But do they start to break down the proteins in the tub?
No, not in a dry form.
That's what I thought. I thought they have to add water through, so the process of hydrolysis occurs, and then they're activated. All right. So, do we have anything else we want to cover here, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, talking about not using too much protein at one time. Your body can only use about 25 to 35 grams, maybe 50 if you're extremely active. So it's better to get your protein spaced out throughout the day into this 5 or 6 different meals. And of course, this is where taking a protein supplement, it's a lot easier drinking than eating sometimes 5 or 6 times a day. So just don't overdo and take in 100 grams of protein at one time because your body just can't use that much.
When you say can't use that much, be more specific, because I've actually made this argument on the show. So there is a preferred response to protein when we talk about the protein synthetic response. And we know that it happens between 25 and 30 grams of protein depending on the leucine content. But if I eat 75 grams of protein in a sitting, my body obviously utilizes it, maybe for energy, it oxidizes it, and some of it will go to stimulate protein synthesis. But I am using it because it's not coming out of me the other end in its whole form. It's being digested, right?
Correct. And I guess it depends on, if you are eating a normal diet where you are eating 25 to 30% protein, 55 to 60% carbs, and moderate fat. What I'm talking about is it's still 4 calories per gram. So an excess in protein could be converted to excess body fat.
Okay.
Yes, it's digested. Our biological values and some of our PER testing shows us that it does come out the other end as protein, even though it's been digested. Your body doesn't use that. The biological value testing tests how much protein you excrete. So that's kind of how that number
That's
comes.
a really good point. So when it comes to protein, the lowest effective dose, if you're looking for the acquisition and maintenance of muscle, then the lowest effective dose is what you should be looking for in each meal. So say 30 grams of protein per sitting.
Correct. And that's kind of what I was trying to say is just don't eat a whole lot at one time because more isn't better per sitting.
Gotcha.
Better spacing it out into smaller meals.
That makes perfect sense. I did not realize that there was excreted protein there, and that makes perfect sense, Dr. Jeff. Again, you cleared something up for me. I've been under a misassumption for a very, very long time.
No problem.
Thanks for the show today, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you much.
And we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Oh, no, we're off the air next week, right? Because we're going to be up in, is it next week that we're off the air? Because we're going to be up in Billings with you.
We are. Actually, you come in on Wednesday, so we will be here live on your
Friday, Casual Friday. That's going to be exciting. Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Jeff.
Take care. Bye-bye.